This is the story of Chief Vincent Duru, popularly known as Otokoto. This is the man that tried to taint the image of Igbos. Because of his action, many people in other regions see every rich Igbo man as a ritualist. The year was 1996, and something sinister lurked beneath the prosperity of Owerri, the bustling capital of Imo State. On the surface, everything seemed ordinary. Hawkers moved through the streets with their wares, businessmen drove their flashy cars, and hotels welcomed guests with promises of comfort and luxury. But underneath this veneer of normalcy, a darkness was spreading, one that would eventually explode into one of the most shocking scandals in Nigerian history. Let me take you back to that September day, the 19th to be exact, when an 11-year-old boy named Anthony Ikechukwu woke up in his uncle's modest home in Amakohia, a small community about 10 kilometers from the heart of Owerri. Anthony was not just any child. He was a boy who had known hardship from an early age. His father had died when he was young, leaving him as the eldest of 6 or 7 children, and his mother, Felicia, had struggled under the cruel treatment of her in-laws. Eventually, she had no choice but to pack up her children and return to her father's house, seeking refuge from the pain that had become her daily existence. It was Anthony's uncle Jonathan, a tailor who lived in Amakohia, who offered to lighten his sister's burden by taking the boy to live with him. Anthony would go to school, Jonathan promised, and in return, he would help his uncle's wife sell boiled groundnuts in their neighborhood. It was an honest arrangement, the kind that kept countless Nigerian families afloat. And so Anthony became a familiar sight in Amakohia, a young boy with a basin of groundnuts, moving from house to house, his voice calling out to potential customers, trying to earn enough to justify the food he ate and the space he occupied. That September morning began like any other. Anthony likely set out with his groundnuts, walking the familiar paths of Amakohia, perhaps thinking about school, about his mother and siblings back in the village, about the simple dreams that children have. He had no idea that he would never see another sunset. He had no way of knowing that his path would cross with a man named Innocent Ekeanyanwu, and that this meeting would change everything. Innocent Ekeanyanwu was a 32-year-old gardener who worked at the famous Otokoto hotel. Now, to understand the magnitude of what happened, you need to understand what Otokoto Hotel represented in Owerri at that time. This was not just any hotel. This was an institution that had existed for nearly 30 years, built from the ground up by Chief Vincent Duru, a man who had earned the title Otokoto and turned it into a brand. The hotel had 3 buildings, each 2 or 3 stories high, and it sat proudly on Douglas Road in the heart of the city. Chief Otokoto owned not just the hotel, but a whole empire of businesses, pharmacies, supermarkets, barbing salons, car washes. The man was wealthy by any standard, and his children lived abroad, living the kind of life that most Nigerians only dreamed about. But here is where the story takes its first dark turn. In 1996, Owerri was a city gripped by fear. Kidnappings were becoming alarmingly common, but these were not random acts. The kidnappers were strategic, targeting only the wealthy. Doctors, politicians, successful businessmen, their wives, their children. If you were rich, you were a target. If you were poor, you were invisible to them. And alongside these kidnappings, bodies were being found. Bodies with missing organs. Bodies dumped in bushes and along roadsides, their heads gone, their private parts harvested. The whispers started quietly at first, but grew louder with each discovery. Money rituals, people said. These rich men becoming millionaires overnight. Where was the money coming from? Young boys who yesterday were learning trades as mechanics were suddenly opening businesses and buying cars. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, but no one could prove it. This was the atmosphere when innocent Ekeanyanwu encountered young Anthony Ikechukwu. According to what would later be pieced together, Innocent lured the boy with promises. Maybe he told him about customers at the hotel who would buy all his groundnuts. Maybe he painted a picture of opportunity that the boy could not resist. Whatever words he used, they worked. Anthony followed him. But here is where the story becomes murky, where truth and manipulation begin to blur in ways that would haunt this case for decades. In Innocent's first statement to the police, given at Iho police station right after his arrest, he confessed to killing Anthony Ikechukwu. But he said he did it at Mba River, a river close to Eziyama in Ikaduru. He said he lured the boy there, used a machete to kill him, and buried his body near the riverbank. Then he took the boy's head, put it in a plastic bag, and set out to deliver it to Chief Leonard Unagwu in Eziyama, a wealthy businessman who also owned hotels and was the brother of the Minister of Science and Technology under General Abacha's regime. When Innocent arrived at Chief Leonard's house, the man was not home. He had traveled to Lagos. Think about that for a moment. If Chief Leonard had truly ordered this human head, if he was expecting this gruesome delivery, why would he not be there to receive it? Why would he travel to Lagos at precisely the time when such a sensitive, dangerous package was on its way to him? These are questions that should have been asked more forcefully, but in the chaos that followed, they got lost. With nowhere to deliver the head, Innocent went to his mother's house. Can you imagine that scene? A son arriving at his mother's doorstep with a plastic bag containing a human head. When his mother saw what was inside, she was horrified. She ordered him out of her house immediately. Some say she might have known about Chief Leonard's reputation, that perhaps there were rumors in the community about what kind of man he was. But whether she knew or not, she wanted no part of it. She called a motorcycle rider, a man named Opara, who was also related to Innocent, and told him to take her son to the motor park. Opara noticed something wrong with the plastic bag. It was leaking, blood was seeping through, and the shape was unmistakably round. After dropping Innocent at the park, Opara went straight to the police station in Iho and reported what he had seen. The police immediately set up roadblocks, searching every vehicle heading toward Owerri. They found Innocent in a vehicle, the plastic bag still with him, and inside it was exactly what Opara had reported. A human head, Anthony Ikechukwu's head. At the police station, Innocent was calm. He had been caught. There was no point in denying anything. He gave his statement to Constable Sunday, speaking in Igbo, while the officer translated it into English. He admitted to the killing. He admitted he was taking the head to Chief Leonard Unagwu. He said he worked as a gardener at Otokoto Hotel. But crucially, in this first statement, he said he killed the boy at Mba River. Chief Vincent Duru was not mentioned. Otokoto Hotel was not mentioned as the scene of the crime. The police took a photograph of Innocent holding the severed head, thinking it would help identify the victim. They published it in newspapers and showed it on television. In 1996, this was what going viral meant. The image was everywhere, and when the people of Owerri saw it, something inside them snapped. This was the proof they had been waiting for. This confirmed everything they had suspected. The rich men were ritualists. The wealthy were getting their money through blood. But the police had made a terrible mistake by publishing that photograph. The outrage it sparked would soon spiral beyond anyone's control. Innocent was transferred to Owerri police station, and that is when he met Detective Officer Obasi Chukwu. the man who would become the most controversial figure in this entire saga. Officer Obasi read Innocent's first statement and was not satisfied with it. He claimed he went to Emba River to search for Anthony's body, but did not find it. Here is the strange part. He went without Innocent. Think about that. When police need to recover a body, they take the suspect with them. The suspect shows them where he buried the victim. This is basic procedure. But Officer Obasi went alone with a few other officers, searched the river area, found nothing, and came back claiming the body was not there. He then forced Innocent to make a second statement, and in this second statement, everything changed. Suddenly, Chief Otokoto's name appeared. Suddenly, the killing happened not at Emba River, but at Otocoto Hotel, in a room at the backyard where the gardeners stayed. Suddenly, Chief Otokoto was the one who had ordered the killing, who had sent Innocent to get a human head for Chief Leonard Unagwu. This second statement was also written in English by Officer Obasi, with Innocent speaking in Igbo. Remember, Innocent could not read or write. He could not speak English. He had to trust that what was being written down matched what he was saying. Armed with this second statement, Officer Obasi got a warrant and stormed Otocoto Hotel on the 21st or 22nd of September. He arrested Chief Vincent Duru, the hotel manager Ebenezer, the pharmaceutical manager Rufus, several other employees, another gardener named Alban Ajabo, the gateman, and some of Chief Otokoto's associates. The hotel was shut down. All the guests were evacuated. All three buildings were emptied and sealed. And then, in a move that should raise every eyebrow, only one police officer remained in the empty hotel. Officer Obasi Chukwu. What happened next defies belief. Alone in that massive empty hotel, Officer Obasi claimed to have found Anthony Ikechukwu's body buried in a shallow grave at the backyard, very close to where the gardener's room was located. He called the other officers and told them to bring Innocent back to the hotel, along with Chief Otokoto and the others who had been arrested. When they arrived, the body was there, dug up from the ground. Innocent was made to stand next to it for another photograph. Anthony's uncle Jonathan came and identified the body as his nephew. And just like that, the narrative was set. Anthony Ikechukwu had been killed at Otocoto Hotel. Chief Vincent Duru had ordered his gardener to commit this atrocity. The people of Owerri felt vindicated. Their suspicions were confirmed. These rich men were killers, ritualists who preyed on poor children to maintain their wealth. But then something happened that should have changed everything. 4 days after his arrest, one day after being taken back to the hotel to pose with the recovered body, innocent Ekeanyanwu was found dead in his cell at Owerri police station. Officer Obasi quickly announced that Innocent had been poisoned, that someone had silenced him to prevent him from exposing the rich men involved in ritual killings. The people of Owerri exploded with rage. This was the final proof they needed. The rich men had killed their witness. They would stop at nothing to protect their evil secrets. The riots that followed were devastating. Angry youths divided themselves into groups and went after wealthy businessmen across the city. It did not matter if you were connected to the Otocoto case or not. If you were rich and your source of wealth was questionable, if anyone had ever whispered that you might be a ritualist, you became a target. Supermarkets were looted. Hotels were burned. Cars were destroyed. The military had to intervene to restore order. The cry everywhere was the same. Burn Otocoto. Kill Leonard Unagwu. These rich men must pay. 7 people were charged to court for the murder of Anthony Ikechukwu, Chief Vincent Duru, Chief Leonard Unagwu, Ebenezer the hotel manager, Rufus the pharmaceutical manager, Lawrence, one of Otokoto's boys, Alban Ajebo, the assistant gardener, and the hotel gateman. They became known as the Otokoto 7, and the whole nation watched as their trial unfolded. But here is the twist that history has somehow forgotten, the detail that changes everything. Innocent Ekeanyanwu was never poisoned. When the state conducted an autopsy on his body, they found no poison in his system. What they found instead was evidence of strangulation and severe beatings. Innocent had been tortured to death, and when investigators began looking into who had killed him, all the officers on duty during the time Innocent was in custody were arrested. Officer Obasi Chukwu and 3 of his colleagues were found guilty of killing Innocent Ekeanyanwu. They were sentenced to death before the Otokoto trial even concluded. Let that sink in for a moment. The detective who had taken Innocent's second statement, who had found the body at Otokoto Hotel, who had built the entire case against Chief Otokoto, was himself convicted and sentenced to death for murdering the key witness. Why would he do that? Why would Officer Obasi kill the most important person in his case, the only person who could testify in court about what really happened? The answer becomes clearer when you understand one crucial fact. Innocent Ekeanyanwu could not read or write. He spoke only Igbo. Whatever was written in that second statement, he had to trust it was accurate. But what if it was not? What if Officer Obasi had written something different from what Innocent actually said? If Innocent had gone to court, he would have been asked to repeat his statement. And if what he said did not match what was written, if he insisted that he killed the boy at Mbar River and not at Otokoto Hotel, then Officer Obasi would have been exposed as a liar. The entire case against Chief Otokoto would have collapsed. So Innocent had to die. Not because the rich men wanted to silence him, but because the detective needed him silent. Innocent died the day after being taken to Otokoto Hotel to pose with the body that he had allegedly said in his second statement he buried there. But what if he was confused? What if he was looking at that body, wondering how it got there when he knew he had buried it at Mbar River? What if he was starting to understand that something was terribly wrong, that he had been manipulated, that his words had been twisted? We will never know what Innocent would have said in court because he never got the chance. His voice was silenced forever, and the second statement written by Officer Obasi became the official truth. But there are more problems with the official story, details that should have raised reasonable doubt. When Officer Obasi claimed he went to Mbar River and did not find the body, why did he go without Innocent? Why did he not take the one person who could show him exactly where he had buried it? And later, when the body was miraculously found at Otokoto Hotel, why was Officer Obasi alone when he found it? Why did no one else witness this crucial discovery? Then there is the matter of distance and location. Anthony Ikechukwu lived with his uncle in Amakohia, a community in Ikaduru about 10 kilometers from Owerri town, where Otokoto Hotel was located. Amakohia is only 3 kilometers from Mbar River. Both Amakohia and Mbar River are close to Eziama, where Chief Leonard lived, close to Iho, where Innocent was arrested, and close to where Innocent's own family lived. All these places form a cluster in Ikaduru. The only place far from all of them is Otokoto Hotel, which sits in the heart of Owerri city, about 11 kilometers away. Does it make sense that a young boy hawking groundnuts would travel 11 kilometers from his uncle's house to Douglas Road in Owerri? That is a long journey for a child selling boiled groundnuts. It makes far more sense that he was hawking in his neighborhood in Amakohia, which is right next to Mbar River. It makes sense that Innocent, who also lived in that general area, encountered him there and lured him to the river, a secluded place where no one would witness what he was about to do. And yet, despite all these questions, despite the suspicious death of Innocent, despite Officer Obasi's conviction for murder, the second statement stood. It was admitted in court. It was used to convict all 7 defendants. The trial itself was a spectacle of public pressure. 3 judges had to step down before a final judge took the case, a woman who wasted no time in delivering the verdict the people demanded. She sentenced all 7 men to death, even though their levels of involvement could not possibly have been equal. The person who wielded the machete could not be equally guilty as someone who merely knew about the crime. But nuance had no place in this courtroom. The people wanted blood, and they got it. The receptionist at Otokoto Hotel, a young woman named Margaret, testified that Chief Otocoto had been in his hotel room the day the killing allegedly happened. That was it. That was one of the main pieces of evidence used to convict him. He was in the building when the murder supposedly took place in the backyard. The judge decided this meant he must have ordered it. The other piece of evidence was that both Chief Otokoto and Chief Leonard Unagwu were chiefs in Ikaduru, so they must have known each other. Therefore, the story of them conspiring to trade in human parts must be true. These were the threads on which 7 death sentences hung. No one saw Anthony being brought into the hotel. The hotel had a strict policy against hawkers, yet supposedly Innocent smuggled this boy past the gateman, past the receptionist, past the manager, all the way to the backyard without anyone noticing. The receptionist and the manager both confirmed seeing Innocent leaving the hotel with a plastic bag that day, but no one saw him bring the boy in. No one saw the killing happen. No one heard anything unusual. Years later, 2 of the Otokoto 7 were released. Alban Ajabo, the assistant gardener who claimed he did not sleep in the room that night, was eventually freed for lack of evidence. Ebenezer, the hotel manager, was also released. If there was lack of evidence to keep them imprisoned, was there ever enough evidence to sentence them to death in the first place? But the most damning revelation, the one that should have overturned everything, was about Chief Otokoto's son, a young man named Obidiozo Duru. This is where the true motive behind Officer Obasi's actions finally comes into focus. Obidiozo was a notorious kidnapper who had been on the police radar for years. The kidnapping epidemic that was terrorizing Owerri's elite, Obidiozo was right at the center of it. But every time the police tried to arrest him, his father's wealth and influence would get him released. The case would disappear. The charges would vanish. Officer Obasi knew this. He had probably tried to bring down Obidiozo multiple times and failed because Chief Otokoto protected his son. So when innocent Ekeanyanwu was caught with a human head and happened to work at Otokoto Hotel, Obasi saw his opportunity. It was a game of chess. Take down the queen to get to the king. Destroy the father's freedom and influence, and the son would be vulnerable. And that is exactly what happened. Within a year or 2 of Chief Otokoto being imprisoned, Obidiozo was arrested for kidnapping. This time, there was no powerful father to save him. He was convicted and sentenced to death, just like his father, dying even before Chief Otokoto's execution. So here is the terrible truth that emerges from this tragedy. Officer Obasi Chukwu probably did plant Anthony's body at Otokoto Hotel. He probably did force or manipulate innocent into making a false second statement. He probably did kill innocent to keep him from contradicting that statement in court. And he did all of this not because he was paid by rival businessmen or because he was evil for evil's sake, but because he wanted to bring down a criminal family that had evaded justice for too long. Does that make what he did right? Absolutely not. Framing an innocent man for murder, even if that man's hands were dirty in other ways, is a perversion of justice. Killing a witness to maintain a false narrative is murder. Officer Obasi paid for his crimes with his life, just as the men he framed paid with theirs. But Chief Vincent Duru was not innocent either. His son was a kidnapper. And the evidence suggests the father knew and enabled it. The wealth that built the Otokoto empire may have come from legitimate businesses that operated for 30 years, but it was also likely supplemented by ransom money from terrorized families. Chief Otokoto may not have killed Anthony Ikechukwu, may never have ordered a human head, may never have performed a money ritual, but his hands were stained with other crimes. And what of Chief Leonard Unagwu? He remains the most mysterious figure in this entire saga. Innocent named him in both statements. The consistent factor whether the killing happened at Mbar River or Otokoto Hotel. Why did Innocent take that head to him? Was it because they were related, as some sources suggest? Was Leonard truly expecting the delivery, but had to travel to Lagos for legitimate reasons, not knowing the timeline had changed? Or was Innocent acting on his own, perhaps knowing of Leonard's reputation and hoping to profit from it? We will never know. Innocent, the only person who could answer these questions, was silenced forever. His voice was stolen from him by the very system meant to extract the truth. The Otokoto story is not a simple tale of good versus evil, of innocent victims and guilty ritualists. It is a complex tragedy where almost everyone involved had blood on their hands in one way or another. A desperate gardener killed a child, whether for money, for ritual purposes, or for reasons we cannot fathom. A detective perverted justice to serve what he saw as a greater good. A wealthy businessman enabled his criminal son. A judicial system buckled under public pressure and delivered the vengeance the mob demanded rather than the justice the truth required. And at the center of it all was Anthony Ikechukwu, an 11-year-old boy who woke up one September morning to sell groundnuts and never came home. His life was stolen from him. His death was exploited by everyone, from the police who used his body as evidence in a manufactured case to the rioters who used his name to justify looting and destruction, to the government that used his tragedy to appear tough on crime. In the end, multiple people were executed for Anthony's murder. Officer Obasi Chukwu died for killing innocent. Chief Otokoto died, possibly for crimes he did not commit, but certainly for crimes he did. Obidio Zor died for his kidnapping activities. Innocent himself died before he could tell his full story. An entire community was traumatized. Businesses were destroyed, lives were ruined. And the truth, the actual truth of what happened that September day in 1996, died with innocent Eke Anyanwu in a police cell, strangled and beaten, his final words unheard, his real story untold, his chance for justice stolen by the very people sworn to provide it. That is the real horror of the Otokoto saga. Not just that evil existed, but that in trying to fight it, more evil was created. Not just that a child died, but that his death was used to justify more deaths, more lies, more injustice. The darkness they were trying to expose in Oweri's wealthy elite turned out to exist just as strongly in the police stations and courtrooms meant to bring light. Justice was never served in the Otokoto case. Vengeance was served. Public rage was satisfied. Scores were settled, but justice, true justice that honors the dead and seeks only truth, that never came. It remains buried somewhere between Mba River and Otokoto Hotel, in the gap between two contradictory statements, in the silence of a murdered witness, in the complexity of human motivations that court judgments can never fully capture. This is the story they do not tell you about Otokoto. This is the truth that got lost in the headlines and the riots and the executions. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of all, that we will never truly know what happened, because the one person who did know was killed before he could speak.